Welcome back to another deck tech video where I break down a deck and how it works. Today I will be covering a deck that I worked on a while ago, and I started it because of an episode of the Command Zone podcast. However, before I do, if you could subscribe, it's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get into it. Today I want to cover Grismold the Dreadsower. This is a fun strategy that involves tokens, but it's a little different from your typical token deck. With your typical token deck, you either make a lot of tokens and attack with them, or you sack them for value. And while this is still true for Grismold, it's a little bit different because everybody gets tokens. However, the catch is that whenever those tokens die, it makes Grismold bigger. And so obviously you're going to make sure they die. And this also makes it a little more interesting for everybody at the table to play because it's tokens but it could backfire. So now that we've explained what it is, I think it's pretty obvious that we need to talk about some of the cards that create tokens. Obviously for a token deck you need to do that. A couple of the cards that I have included are Beledros Witherbloom and Arista of the Endless Web. Beledros will give you tokens that gain you life, and if you have enough life you can even untap your lands as an added bonus. And Arista will allow you to make a lot of tokens based off of instants and sorceries that your opponents play. That means if anybody counters one of your spells, and you have Arista on the field, you still at least get a token, which is just kind of cool. And now that we've established how we're going to make tokens in this deck, well, I think it's only natural that we move on to what we're going to do with all of our tokens. Well, I think it's pretty obvious we want them to die. So I think a couple of fun cards to play are Massacre Worm and Massacre Girl. When these enter the battlefield, they'll not only kill a bunch of creatures, but they'll also hit some of your opponent's value creatures that are just kind of smaller in toughness. And it's kind of just an added bonus that they're also buffing Grismold by killing the tokens. Now I think you have a basic idea of how to win with this deck because this deck is pretty easy to understand, and it is either that you have too many tokens for your opponents to stop, or Grismold is just too big. However, I think there are a couple cards that I just think are really good in this deck, and I really just want to kind of highlight because I think they're going to be super fun. I think one of the more obvious ones is Avenger of Zendar, because you're creating plant tokens with Grismold. Avenger of Zendar creates plant tokens, and every time that you play a land, it'll also buff all of your plant tokens, which makes them harder to kill, but it also means that you're probably going to have a lot bigger of an attack against your opponents, and so it's give and take, but Avenger of Zendar I think is going to be a super cool card in this deck. Another card that I included and I really wanted to highlight because of how brutal it could be in the right circumstance is Braids Arisen Nightmare. This card can be so mean if you play it at the right time. This card either forces your opponents to sacrifice a creature, which is probably going to be the tokens, and buff Grismold, or lose life and give you card advantage. Neither option sounds pleasant from my perspective. I also figured I should highlight one of the sacklets in the deck, and one of my favorites is Woe Strider. It's not only because it comes in and creates a token, the best type of token mind you, and a goat, but that's besides the point. It also allows you to scry, which is almost card advantage, and it's really hard to get rid of for good because it has escape and can come back from the graveyard. This makes it super cool in this deck because you're able to bring it back, you're able to use it over and over again, and it does what you need. And last but not least, I don't think I could end the video without at least mentioning this absolute powerhouse of a card in this deck, and really it's going to be a staple for a lot of token decks, and that is Mirkwood Bats. I don't think I even need to say anything more about explaining this card, except for reading the card explains the card. And that should be all you need to build this deck. As always, the full deck list is in the description. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, and for more magic content, subscribe. That's all until next time, whether on this plane or another, have a wonderful day.